July 2025, Clearwater, Florida. A 71-year-old man goes into cardiac arrest in his home. Within hours, the wrestling world is in mourning. Tributes pour in from every corner of the internet. Grown men who watched him as children are openly weeping on social media. News networks run segments about the death of an American icon. For a few days, Hulk Hogan is remembered as the hero he always wanted to be. But here's the thing that haunts me. 2 years before he died, his own daughter had herself legally removed from his will. She didn't trust a single person around him. She was so scared of the people in his inner circle that she walked away from potentially millions of dollars just to avoid dealing with them after he was gone. And in her final phone call with her father, he apologized, but she still didn't come back. How do you become the most beloved wrestler in history and die with your family in pieces? His Leo chart explains all of it. The superhero image, the inability to separate the character from the man, the desperate need for applause that made him trust the wrong people over and over. And wait till you see the pattern with his 3 marriages. It's textbook Leo shadow at work. Plus, there's a detail about his relationship with Scientology in his final years that is genuinely unsettling. If you're obsessed with understanding famous people through astrology, hit subscribe, drop a like. And honestly, I need your take on this one. Do you think Hulk Hogan was trapped by his Leo chart, or did he choose the persona over reality? Comment below, because this story is more complicated than any wrestling storyline he ever lived. Hulk Hogan, born Terry Bollea, August 11, 1953 in Augusta, Georgia. That puts his sun firmly in Leo, the lion. Ruled by the sun itself, the literal center of our solar system, fixed fire energy. The sign of the performer, the king, the one who was born to be seen. At its best, Leo is warm, generous, creative, and magnetically charismatic. They light up rooms without trying. They inspire loyalty. They make everyone around them feel like they're part of something special. The greatest leaders, performers, and artists often have strong Leo energy because Leo understands that life is, in some fundamental way, a performance. But here's what gets lost in the Leo love. That same solar energy that makes them radiant, it also makes them desperately dependent on being seen. Leo's sense of self comes from external validation. They need the crowd. They need the applause. They need to be the center of attention, not out of pettiness, but because without that reflection, they genuinely don't know who they are. When a Leo goes dark, their confidence becomes delusion. Their need to be loved becomes manipulation. Their performance becomes a prison they can't escape because they've forgotten who they were before the spotlight found them. And Terry Bollea? He created a character so powerful, so beloved, so all-consuming, that by the end, even he couldn't tell where Hulk Hogan ended and Terry Bollea began. Keep that in mind, because this is the story of what happens when Leo energy meets the one industry on Earth designed specifically to reward people for becoming their own characters. So let's go back to the beginning. Tampa, Florida. A kid named Terry Bollea growing up as the son of a construction foreman and a homemaker. Even young, you can see the Leo traits emerging. He was a natural athlete, bigger than his peers, always visible in any room. At 6'7" and eventually over 300 pounds, he was literally impossible to ignore. Classic Leo. Destiny to be seen. But here's where it gets interesting. Before wrestling, before the yellow and red, before what you gonna do, brother, Terry played bass guitar in local rock bands. Music was his first love. He joined bands with names like Ruckus and played the Florida club circuit for years, Leo's creative expression finding its first outlet. But playing bass in a rock band means you're standing behind the lead singer. You're part of the show, not the star of it. And for a Leo, that's like giving a lion a participation trophy. He needed the spotlight focused directly on him. When he was in his early 20s, he saw 2 professional wrestlers at a bar. Massive guys. Surrounded by attention, he asked the bartender who they were. The answer changed his life. Wrestlers. And suddenly Terry Bollea knew exactly what he was meant to do. Not music, not construction like his dad, wrestling. The one art form where you're literally the center of the ring. 1976. Terry starts training with Hiro Matsuda, a legendary Japanese wrestler who tested everyone who walked through his door. On his very first day, Matsuda broke Terry's leg, deliberately, to see if he'd come back, and here's where you see Leo's pride emerge. Most people would quit. Reasonable people would quit. But a Leo, being told they can't do something, that's not a warning. That's a personal insult to their very identity. Leo is the sign that believes they're special, that they're destined for greatness, and when someone tries to stop them, that just proves the specialness even more. Terry came back, because a Leo with a dream doesn't give up. They can't. Their entire sense of self is wrapped up in becoming what they believe they're meant to be. He started wrestling in 1977 under various names, none of them sticking. Super Destroyer, Sterling Golden, nothing felt right. And then Vince McMahon Sr. gave him the name that would consume him. Hulk Hogan, the Incredible Hulk meets Hulk Hogan, a name designed to be larger than life. The character was born. And slowly, Terry Bollea started to disappear. But here's what Leo brings to this. It wasn't just about becoming a wrestler. It was about becoming the wrestler, the one everyone talks about, the one who transcends the industry. And in 1982, he got his first taste of that when Sylvester Stallone cast him as Thunderlips in Rocky III, a Hollywood movie, a major studio release. And there's Terry Bollea, 6'7", fighting Rocky Balboa on the big screen. Leo's entertainment destiny announcing itself before the wrestling world even knew what was coming. He married Linda Claridge in 1983 and had 2 children, Brooke in 1988 and Nick in 1990. A family, a normal life happening just off stage while the character was being built. But remember that Leo need for center stage. Because what comes next isn't just a career, it's the complete transformation of a person into their own performance. 1983. Vince McMahon Jr. takes over WWF from his father and needs a star. Not just a wrestler, a superhero. Someone who can transcend the sport, appear on talk shows, star in movies, become a household name, even for people who never watch wrestling. He looks at Terry Bollea in his yellow bandana and red tights with his 24-inch pythons and his natural charisma, and he sees exactly what he needs. A Leo who was literally born to be seen. Hulkamania is created, and it's not just a gimmick. It's a religion. Eat your vitamins, say your prayers, train hard, believe in yourself. Hulk Hogan becomes the ultimate good guy in a world that suddenly needed one. This is the Reagan era. Morning in America, and here's this blonde giant telling kids they can be anything if they work hard enough. WrestleMania I in 1985 pairs Hogan with Mr. T, who was at peak A-Team fame. 22,000 people in Madison Square Garden. This isn't wrestling anymore. This is mainstream entertainment, and Hulk Hogan is at the center of all of it. The Leo dream fully realized. The crowd chanting his name, the cameras capturing every muscle flex and finger point, the children wearing his merchandise, eating his vitamins, believing every word he says. And here's the thing about Leo that people don't fully understand. When a Leo is loved by millions, it doesn't make them feel secure. It makes them terrified of losing that love. The crowd becomes essential. The applause becomes oxygen, and anything that threatens the applause becomes an existential threat. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was wrestling. For nearly a decade, you couldn't separate Hulk Hogan from professional wrestling itself. He was Saturday morning cartoons, action figures, movies, rock and wrestling on MTV. The whole industry revolved around him like planets around the sun. And that's the problem. When you become the sun, you start to believe the universe actually revolves around you. Here's where the Leo shadow starts showing its teeth. Backstage, the guy preaching vitamins and prayers was playing politics like his life depended on it. Because for a Leo, it kinda does. The kingdom must be protected at all costs. He became notorious for creative control clauses in his contracts, demanding final say over storylines so he'd never look weak. He allegedly politicked against other wrestlers who got too popular, protecting his spot at the top. The Hulkster was always the hero, even when the story might have been better if he took a loss. One of the most famous examples, Shawn Michaels claimed Hogan refused to lose to him at SummerSlam 2005. They had to negotiate a finish where nobody really won, because Hulk Hogan, even at 52 years old, could not accept not being the hero. This is Leo's gift and curse. The confidence that makes them stars also makes them believe they deserve to be stars forever, that the applause is their birthright, that any threat to their position is a personal attack on their very existence. And then came 1991. the steroid scandal. WWF was rocked by accusations of steroid distribution. Hogan admitted on the Arsenio Hall show that he had used steroids, though he claimed it was only for medical rehabilitation. The pure superhero image cracked. By 1993, he left WF, not exactly fired, but definitely not wanted the same way anymore. The hero had become inconvenient, and for a Leo, being unwanted, that's worse than death. So he did what any Leo would do. He found a new kingdom. 1994, WCW, Ted Turner's wrestling company desperate to compete with WWF. They offered Hulk Hogan more money, more control, and most importantly, a fresh audience that still wanted to believe. But here's where the story takes its most Leo twist yet. Because in 1996, Hulk Hogan did something nobody saw coming. He turned heel. The good guy became the bad guy. At Bash at the Beach, he aligned with two former WWF stars, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, to form the New World Order, the NWO. And instead of the red and yellow, instead of train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, he came out in black and white, sneering, insulting the fans who had worshipped him. The crowd threw garbage in the ring, literally. They were heartbroken, betrayed. The hero had become the villain, but here's what the audience didn't realize. This was Leo's ultimate power move. He wasn't losing control of his narrative. He was proving he was the one who controlled it. I made you love me, and now I'm making you hate me. Both emotions are about me. The spotlight never moves, and honestly, it worked. The NWO became the hottest thing in wrestling. WCW beat WWF in the ratings for 83 consecutive weeks. Hulk Hogan, at 43 years old, had reinvented himself and proven he could make you feel whatever he wanted you to feel. Classic Leo. Even the villain turn was about making sure everyone was watching him. But here's where the chart starts predicting the chaos to come. Because Leo's need for an audience doesn't just apply to wrestling crowds, it applies to everyone. And eventually, even a family becomes an audience. 2005, Hogan Knows Best premieres on VH1, a reality show about Hulk Hogan's family life. His wife Linda, his daughter Brooke trying to launch a music career, his son Nick. And this is where you see the Leo trap in its most disturbing form. Even his private life had become a performance. The cameras were in his house. His children's failures and successes were content. His marriage was being performed for an audience. Think about what that does to a family. How do you have a genuine relationship with someone who can't stop performing? How do you raise children who know their family life is being watched by millions? How do you be a real person when real has become another character you play? By 2007, everything was falling apart behind the scenes. Linda filed for divorce after 24 years of marriage. It was ugly. She accused him of hiding assets. There were rumors he'd been unfaithful with a friend of their daughter, Brooke. The wholesome family image shattered on camera, which made it even more humiliating. That same year, their son Nick got into a car accident that left his passenger, a Iraq War veteran John Graziano, in a vegetative state. Nick had been driving over 100 miles per hour. He went to jail. The Graziano family sued the Hogans. The good dad image was destroyed. But here's the Leo tragedy. Even then, the performance continued. Jail phone calls between Nick and Hulk were recorded where they discussed turning the situation into a reality show. While a veteran was lying in a hospital bed unable to speak, they were talking about content. The audience was more important than the reality. Even in crisis, especially in crisis, the 2010s should have been a victory lap, returns to WWE for nostalgia pops. The crowd still cheering, the merchandise still selling, WrestleMania moments that made grown men cry tears of childhood joy. But the Leo shadow was still at work because Hulk Hogan couldn't stop talking, couldn't stop performing even when the cameras weren't supposed to be rolling. 2012. A sex tape leaks. Hogan with Heather Clem, the wife of his best friend Bubba the Love Sponge. The tape was recorded without his knowledge. He sued Gawker Media for invasion of privacy and eventually won $140 million, bankrupting the company. But here's the thing nobody expected. That same tape had audio, and on that audio, recorded in what he thought was a private moment, Hulk Hogan said things about his daughter's boyfriend. Things that revealed exactly who Terry Bollea was when he thought nobody was watching. Racist statements, the N-word, casual, ugly bigotry from the man who had spent decades hugging children of all races in the ring, preaching brotherhood and hulkamania. 2015. The audio leaks. WWE immediately erases him from their history. His Hall of Fame page deleted, his merchandise pulled, his name scrubbed from their website, the guy who built modern wrestling erased from the company he built. Overnight, and here's the Leo agony of it, he wasn't just canceled, he was unseen. The lights went off, the crowd went silent. For a Leo, that's not embarrassment, that's existential annihilation. 3 years later, in 2018, WWE brought him back. Because wrestling needs its legends, and Hogan is the biggest legend of them all. The crowd cheered. He was inducted back into the Hall of Fame. The narrative, as always, was that he'd grown, learned, changed. But the damage to his family was already done. His relationship with his daughter Brooke had been deteriorating for years. She had concerns about the people around him, the inner circle, the yes men. The girlfriend who became wife number 3, Sky Daly, whom he married in September 2023. 3 marriages. And here's the Leo pattern nobody talks about. A Leo doesn't just need a partner, they need an audience, even in their most intimate relationships. Someone to reflect their greatness back to them. And when that reflection stops working, when a spouse starts seeing the flaws behind the performance, the Leo often moves on to someone who still sees the legend. Linda, wife number 1, saw him go from dreamer to icon. She was there for the rise, but she also saw everything behind the curtain, and eventually that seeing became uncomfortable. Wife number 2, Jennifer McDaniel, came after the divorce and the scandals, a chance at a fresh start that didn't last. And then, Sky Daly, wife number 3, appearing in his final years when he was at his most vulnerable and most desperate to be seen as still relevant. Sources say Brooke was so worried about her father being manipulated that she reached out to former FBI contacts. She contacted Mike Rinder, a former Scientologist turned critic, because she'd discovered Sky was what's called a second-generation Scientologist. Her parents were allegedly OT8, one of the highest levels in the church. When Brooke tried to warn her father, he didn't listen. He told her Sky just wanted to maintain contact so her kids could see their grandparents. Classic justification. And then, shortly after those conversations, Brooke found herself cut off from her father's life. 2 weeks before his wedding to Sky Daly, Hulk Hogan called his daughter and left what she described as a weird, cryptic voicemail, like someone in AA doing their steps. "Hey, I just wanted to call and say I'm sorry for whatever I did. An apology, but not specific enough to fix anything." And then he went through with the wedding anyway. That was the last time they really spoke. Here's what Brooke revealed about her father's final years that explains so much about Leo's shadow side. She said she felt like there was a force field around him that she couldn't penetrate. People in his circle who had financial incentives to keep family away. People who saw dollar signs, not a human being. And Hulk, with his Leo need to be surrounded by admirers, couldn't tell the difference between genuine love and people who just wanted to bask in his spotlight. She was present for almost 25 of his surgeries over the years. The man had destroyed his body for wrestling, back surgeries, hip replacements, the physical toll of being a superhero for 40 years. His blood work, she claimed, was like a 25-year-old's despite decades of damage. And she watched as new people slowly replaced family in those hospital rooms. This is another Leo tragedy. Leo rules the spine, the back, the heart, the physical center of the body, just like Leo wants to be the center of everything else. And Hulk Hogan sacrificed that spine, that back, for years and years of performance. The character demanded a body that could keep performing, and Terry paid the price in surgery after surgery. In 2023, 2 years before he died, Brooke made a decision that tells you everything about how broken things had become. She contacted her father's financial manager and had herself legally removed from his will. She didn't want the money. She didn't want to fight for it after he was gone. She just wanted to protect herself from the people she was certain would make any inheritance into a war. Think about that. A daughter so convinced her father was surrounded by vultures that she preemptively gave up millions of dollars rather than deal with them. And when Hulk Hogan died in July 2025 at age 71 from cardiac arrest in his Clearwater, Florida home, nobody knows where the money, the trademarks, the intellectual property, the entire Hulkamania empire will actually go. Sky Daly? The Scientology-connected inner circle? We don't know. What we do know is that his daughter wasn't there when he died. She was estranged. She had moved to Florida to be close in case he needed her, but that force field was still up. And she found out he had never even tried to meet the twins she gave birth to in January 2025. His grandchildren. He never made an effort. Here's what haunts me about Hulk Hogan's Leo chart. Leo is the sign of the heart, of warmth, of genuine love given and received. The evolved Leo doesn't just demand attention, they radiate so much light that everyone around them feels special. And somewhere, underneath the bandana and the pythons and the catchphrases, Terry Bollea probably had that warmth. His daughter said she knew the real version of him, not just the character the world saw. She loved that person. She named one of her twins after him, giving her daughter the middle name Jean from Terry Jean Bollea. But the character was so big, so consuming, so necessary for his survival, that eventually there was no room left for the real person. The audience became more important than the family. The performance became the only reality. And by the end, he was surrounded by people who were there for the show, not for Terry. This is Leo's warning. When you become the image will eventually control you. When you need the spotlight to feel alive, you'll do anything to keep it on. And when you trust anyone who claps for you, you'll eventually be surrounded by people who are only clapping because they want something. He said in his final years that Hulk Hogan was a character, that Terry Bollea was the real person. But in court testimony, even he couldn't clearly explain where one ended and the other began. Because maybe, after 40 years of being Hulk Hogan, there wasn't really a Terry Bollea left to find. Wrestling is Leo's perfect art form. It demands you become a character. It rewards the biggest personalities. The crowd literally chants your name while you flex and pose. Every match is a performance designed to create heroes and villains. And Hulk Hogan was the greatest Leo to ever do it. He proved wrestling could be mainstream entertainment. He proved a character could become iconic. He proved the power of performance to create reality. But he also proved the danger, that when the performance consumes the person, there's nobody left to catch you when the lights go off. That a family can love the real you while being unable to reach you through the character. That dying surrounded by admirers is not the same as dying surrounded by people who actually know you. His daughter Brooke, in her tribute after his death, said she was grateful she knew the real version of him, not just the one the world viewed through a carefully curated lens. She said his blood runs through her veins, his eyes shine through her children, and their bond had never broken, not even in his final moments. Maybe that's the most Leo ending possible. Even in death, she's trying to separate the real person from the character, still loving the father underneath the persona, still wishing she could have saved him from the thing that made him famous. The character made him immortal. And the character is probably what ended him alone, in a room in Florida, married to his third wife, with his daughter on the other side of a force field she couldn't break through no matter how hard she tried. That's what happens when a Leo refuses to ever leave the stage. Eventually, the stage becomes a cage, and the performance becomes the only thing you have left. Hulk Hogan made millions of people believe in something. He made kids think they could do anything. He made adults feel like children again. He created moments of pure joy in arenas around the world for decades, and he died without really knowing if the people around him loved Terry or just loved the show. That's Leo at its most glorious and its most tragic, the gift of making everyone feel something, and the curse of never quite knowing if they'd still love you if the music stopped. What you gonna do, brother, when reality comes for you? If this video made you see Leo in a completely new way, subscribe for more deep dives into history's most famous figures through their charts. And seriously, drop a comment. Do you think Hulk Hogan was a victim of his own Leo chart, or did he choose the character over the person? I want to know where you stand, because this one's not simple. There's no easy villain here. Just a man who became something bigger than himself and maybe lost himself in the process. I'll see you in the next one.